Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the National Bleav Network. And boy, oh boy, it's going to be fun today because joining me to look at this huge Durant for Jalen and Dillon trade is one of my favorites in Rocket Spaces. It's Clayton Anderson, a.k.a. at Crosstalk Sport on X. Good to see you, brother. Great to have you on the show finally. And before we dissect this deal, can you share a little bit your Rockets background and how long have you been a fan?
So actually, it's interesting. So I don't know if you recall, but there was an entertainment team called the Houston Rockets Launch Crew. We'd go on the court, during timeouts, throw T-shirts out and all that stuff with Clutch. So I was actually one of those people. I'd run out there, and that's really where my fandom grew because I really was in the Houston sport at the time. But since then, I remember coming in. That era was Chuck Hayes, Carl Landry, Luis Scola, Aaron Brooks. That era post Steve Francis. So I've been a fan ever since then. I remember the Chase Budinger years and the Carlos Delfino years. So it's been a good little minute since maybe 08, 09. So yeah, this has been a fun journey so far. A lot of highs, a lot of lows, but here we are. So
a couple of injury breaks around that 08, 09 team. And boy, they could have beaten the Lakers and maybe gotten to the finals, but just a bunch of bad luck there with, I think T-Mac went down, Yao went down in that offseason, Dikembe went down. I think that team could have done something. I mean, they almost beat the Lakers without all those guys. It's unbelievable. Let's go over this Rockets deal because I know everybody's anxious to get into it. It's Durant for Jalen, Dillon, this year's first-round pick, and 5 second-round picks, whatever. But, Clayton, I wasn't a big fan of a KD trade to begin with because I worried about the cost of this type of deal with Durant's, age and injury issues. But this is a win in 3 ways situation for me because, number one, they also got off the Jalen contract, which I knew could be as bad as soon as they signed him. I knew that could be a hindrance. And then number 2, they move on from Dillon Brooks. We all knew it was time for Amen and either Tari or Jabari to be forwards. And I figured that might not go very well with Dillon Brooks, that he was now going to be on the bench potentially next year. So that's a second win. And then the third thing is you replace inefficient Jalen with one of the most efficient guys in NBA history in Kevin Durant. What did you think, Clayton, about the deal?
Oh, man. So my brother actually was the one who made me aware. And my immediate response was, you're kidding, you're lying. So when I checked it, and no, sure enough, it was there. Immediate response, you kind of hit it. You did 2 things. You got Kevin Durant, which everybody is the association's worst kept secret that you were in the mix for Kevin Durant. But not only did you get Kevin Durant, but you also moved off of the Jalen Green contract. And it hurts because I understand that sentimentally Jalen Green was like the first or one of the first guys of the rebuild. So for whatever you Bleav about Jalen Green, I mean, he does occupy a special place sentimentally. However, the data is the data, numbers are numbers. And before the playoffs, he had 4 years of runway to show why he should be the guy to carry the torch into the next, generation. And I think what happened was everything else escalated around Jalen, and he kind of was still on his own trajectory. And the two they didn't add up. So, but for me, from the cost standpoint, no disrespect to the second rounders, no disrespect to anybody in the cost. We did not give up nearly as much as was rumored as I thought. The fact that you kept your core together, because that was the main argument, you're going to blow up your whole core for this 37-year-old. The fact that we kept Jabari, we kept Amen, we kept Şengün, we kept Reed. I mean, as you said, that's a win in multiple ways. So the cost was low. You moved off a number of problematic contracts, and you get one of the best players in NBA history at 37 at a time where we've seen Tom Brady, LeBron James, and others who have shown that players can play for long amounts of time, assuming the right circumstances. So for me, the cost helped me to be much more content and really happy, over the moon about what we got.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Jalen Green and where he was and all this. And, I had a lot of people over the last several years get mad at me. You're a Jalen Green hater. I was a Jalen Green skeptic. I wasn't a hater, and there was good reason for it. And you see why that, that's where the brass was on Jalen as well when it was all said and done. Going back to Kevin Porter, I said this guy potentially could be out of the NBA in a couple of years. He was off the Rockets in a couple of years, and he was out of the NBA. He's back in now, but not much of anything of value at this point. So, yeah, for the people that want to come at me, oh, you don't like Jalen? Oh, you don't like Kevin Porter? Yeah, I don't like these guys for a reason. And this is sort of the reason. And you have to give Rafael Stone credit. Number one, the Jalen glow up after the season was all smokescreen. That was beautifully played by Stone. He's a lawyer. I knew it. And they did not buy into him either. Number two, their trade with Brooklyn for the Suns pick just paid off, and they got 2 Suns first rounders left in the chamber. So it's not over with, and it's already paid off to help you get Kevin Durant. Number three, they didn't panic despite other KD suitors. Everybody was expecting, oh, they're going to start adding stuff in. And it sounds like the deal didn't change much. Maybe they swapped out Dillon for the filler stuff, but that was it. And then number four, hey, they still got a good package for Giannis if he shakes loose. So Clayton, that's 4 good stuff from your GM.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a home run, it seems like, from the whole Rockets organization at this point. And let's look, I'm curious to what you think. Let's look at the lineup and rotation now. And I'm assuming the starters, VanVleet, KD, Amen, Jabari, and Şengün. Could be Jabari or Tari, but Tari off the bench, Adams, Shepherd, and maybe Cam. Is that what you're seeing? And, what would your starters be if you were in charge of this?
Absolutely. So I thought about that. So of course, VanVleet at the one. I noticed you listed KD second. I don't know if you just meant to do that off the tongue or positionally, but I had KD more of 3-4. So VanVleet 1, Amen 2, or interchangeable. KD 3, and then Jabari 4, Şengün 5, or swap Şengün 4, Jabari 5, depending on who you're playing. But that's what I see right there. I don't know if we're done making moves to fill out the roster. I don't think this is what we're going to end with. I do still think you maybe could benefit from like a bargain bin shooter somewhere, a la maybe a Seth Curry or somebody like that who could come in alongside Reed, alongside Cam, and just be an extra body.
Yeah, and they could absolutely add some stuff, still make another trade, something like that. But the reason I'm listing them off in that order is, I kind of feel like KD is sort of a pseudo 2 guard, and I sort of like KD being more on the perimeter, so a guy with his age doesn't have to take the banging and stuff like that. And frankly, it's positionless. Like, these 5 guys can play together. They're your 5 best players, or you can argue Tari for Jabari if you want to, and that might happen as well. But I mean, you get your 5 best players out on the floor doing that, and there's just the constant switching. I don't even know if it's worth talking about who plays what position, because we know that Amen can play any position. We know KD can play 2 or 3 different positions, and we know Jabari can play a couple of different positions too.
The positionlessness, I think, really helps this team because they are so multifaceted, multi-talented. The only thing is, from an offensive standpoint, you just don't want to get caught up in the same type of gunk and junk that you were doing this past season where the ball was stopped, too much dribbling. That's not good anyway. So you don't want to drop KD into that offensive ideology. So while KD definitely is a plus in the offensive department, you still need an offensive identity and philosophy that will facilitate better ball movement, better scoring, just better half-court offense, especially watching playoffs.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about that as well from the standpoint of where I am with Udoka, and also from the standpoint of where we are and how we're seeing the playoffs a little bit. But I tell you what, we're talking all this strategy, but forget all that. DraftKings already has the Rockets with the 2nd best odds to win the championship next year. OKC plus 250, Rockets plus 750. How about that, Clayton?
I think, as the kids say, that's a lot of glaze. I think that's as a Houston fan, it hurts because I want to cheerlead and say, hey, awesome. But the reality is you still got to play the game. So it's nice, right? It's cool. We haven't been here before, but I think we should pump the brakes a bit and kind of let them finish cooking up what they're going to do. What are your thoughts about those numbers?
It's realistic maybe from the West right now, but there's still moves to be made. So this is going to change, I think, in the next month. I assume the Lakers might be doing some stuff for sure, and some of the other teams. But I mean, if you go off last season, the Rockets were the 2nd seed. Again, the teams were all jammed in tight. And our Rockets fans are like, well, they're 2nd seed. They're almost there. But they were almost in the 7th or 8th seed when you look at the standings too.
Sure.
I mean, you can say, well, those last 3 games, they didn't really put forth the effort. They could have won 3 more games potentially. They didn't need to. But still, it was that tight in the Western Conference. So, if I look at the West right now, why not the Rockets as the 2nd team in the West? I don't know if that means the Rockets, though, are the 2nd team as far as winning the whole championship. I mean, Indiana, you got to take them for real. It looks like they're going to bring pretty much everybody back, and they're no joke. I mean, you'd say, oh, it's a Cinderella run or whatever, but they kept proving over and over again that they're for real and the chemistry is for real. And you assume if everybody's pretty much coming back, they should be coming back. I think they have maybe Turner to potentially re-sign, but I would think that's going to happen after all of this. If that's the case, then, I would say maybe the Rockets are 3rd. It's like the Knicks, the Cavs. It's out east. Those 2 teams or those 3 teams really have a chance to get there in the East. So I don't know if they're better than the Rockets at this point, because the Rockets are still pretty young outside of KD. I mean, I know Durant is a guy that really helps out your experience, but still among the starters, yeah, you got VanVleet, who's got some age with them, but that's about it. I mean, Şengün, Amen, Tare, Jabari, these guys are still young. They still got a lot to learn. You still got to go through the bumps and all of that sort of thing. They've got to do that. You have to do it in more than one round. Hey, look, Indiana and OKC, you can say whatever you want to, but OKC, they won a round last year. They have a MVP that's a current MVP. They have a lot of guys that, have had some experience in the last couple of years. It wasn't like boom, and now they're in the finals and they hadn't won a round yet. The Rockets haven't won a round. In the East, you look at it from that perspective, and again, there's a lot of teams with some veteran guys out there, the Cavs and the Knicks and that sort, besides Indiana. So, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know if they should be 2nd, but in the West, I think they should be 2nd in the West for sure.
Sure. No, I agree. I think the Western conversation definitely. And to your point, that does contextualize, where they were this playoffs, right? Were they really a true 2 seed? Yes, no, maybe so. But definitively now we can have those conversations about West versus rest of the league. So no, it should be fun, but there's still going to be a lot of questions that have to be answered. They're not done yet, and neither are the games. So we just got to see how that goes.
I'm also interested to see what Minnesota does, because I just have a lot of respect for Ant. And at this point in their careers, maybe Ant is the best player between the 2 teams. And usually if you have the best player, you have a pretty good chance at winning that series. So that's a big deal. What still concerns me about the Rockets? Well, we're going to talk about that in a second. What about a Durant extension? What does that look like? We're going to hit on that in a sec. But just a quick reminder for all our listeners, give us your Rockets takes. Let me know in the YouTube comments. Also, today is the 31st anniversary of the Rockets' first championship. So this date in history was already good to begin with. If you missed it, I posted a tribute to Clutch City with the Rockets beat writer during that era. And he's also a Rudy T biographer. Please go check that out if you haven't already. Tomorrow, I'm going to have an Astros guest. And Tuesday, Rockets analyst Cooper Klein is back on the show. As always, you can support us and get updates on every show we drop by subscribing on YouTube, and definitely give us that thumbs up. You can also listen while you're on the go with your favorite podcast app. All right, Clayton, if the Rockets sign Durant to an extension, which you assume that's going to happen pretty quickly, it better not be 2 years at max money, because he'll be 39 at that 3rd year, and Amen's probably max extension at that point. It's going to be kicking in. So you'd have Şengün, Amen, and Durant taking up nearly all of the cap space, Clayton.
No, you're right. And that was the part of the conversation that I don't want to say concerned me, but you can see coming, right? And that's why between Jalen and between Dillon, I mean, that was like what, 50 plus mil between those two, I Bleav. So you definitely could see like the tea leaves of, yeah, there's probably going to be some money here. Yeah, if it's not max money, it's probably going to be somewhere close to it, the ballpark. And I think that goes back to what maybe Stone was thinking or what the team is thinking, where they're confident in these next 2 or 3 seasons as opposed to where the resources were allocated at first. But you would just hope that whatever deal KD gets, inevitably, you would hope that it does not limit them from being able to not just pay Amen and others money, but from just a flexibility is going to better facilitate successful basketball.
Yeah, one thing that's very interesting is if you potentially make a deal where this extension the first year is, close to 50 something million or whatever, around what he has this coming up year. The second year, if you can maybe get him to take 35 million, 40 million. So it's a little,
right,
a little bit less money at that point.
Some decelerators.
Yeah. I think that might work better, don't you?
No, absolutely. I think so. I think it's in KD's best interest to try to garner as much favor as he can. He is on his his sixth team. So I think at this point there needs to be some mutual understanding and maturity that, hey, listen, man, we came to get you, but you're at the end of your career, and let's not make this an ego thing. You help us, we help you. We will pay you handsomely, but some decelerators will help to better manage a championship situation, and that could extend the championship window depending on how big that is.
Guess what? You're also in Texas. You don't have state tax like you would have had in Arizona. So that's another part of the deal that he can think about. Look, I know everybody loved the Udoka contract extension, but that news is great. I needed this offseason a new offensive mind on the coaching staff, though. We've heard zero news on that front. You were just talking about Clayton, Durant and the offense and what it's going to look like. Unless they're waiting for the Knicks coaching job to be filled and there's somebody in that search that they're trying to bring in for an offensive guy, it's incredibly concerning that it's the same old poorly coached offense next season if they don't go out and get somebody. KD doesn't fix everything.
Not at all. And that's where, to your point, we'll learn a lot about Udoka right now in terms of how collaborative is he, how much is he willing to accept the fact that, hey, we need another guy here, not someone to usurp your spot. Of course, you just got paid a nice contract. But obviously, right from Boston years to now, there needs to be assurances that KD is not going to be looked at 37 years old like he's supposed to be the salve for everything. We need to know that. And you made the point a couple of episodes ago where you mentioned just the fact that a lot of these guys can't dribble. They can't set themselves up. And KD is not a triple-double machine. He's not Russell Westbrook. He's not going to 12 to 15 assists a game. He's going to play his game. We need some guys either to organically develop, or we need a coaching, ideological change, or maybe a guard who can come in along VanVleet to help facilitate better offense. But no, KD is not the answer for everything. And you would just hope that infrastructurally there are changes to facilitate the KD situation.
And I asked Bryson, aka Red Nation Blogger, you mentioned a couple of shows ago, if he was worried about the offense. He said no, because he thought the Warriors were just a bad matchup in round one. He said the Rockets could have made a legit run if it wasn't for Golden State. But hey, I just don't see it that way, because OKC's 2 toughest opponents in the playoffs, when you look at it, Denver and Indiana, both teams, great spacing, well-designed offense. The passing is immaculate. It helps that you have Jokic and Halliburton, but that's the issue right there, is they've got to correct this. And KD is not Luka. He's not a guy that's going to get everybody moving and passing and all that sort of stuff. So that's the problem right there, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And you brought it up. Your playoff stories, your playoff points. Absolutely. Looking at Indiana, looking at OKC, it's like night and day. The give and goes, the baseline breaks, the cuts, the wide open threes generated by good offense and not just offensive rebound number 1, number 2, number 3. We are behind in that regard. So again, you would just hope that along with KD, there's a philosophical change in how you approach basketball. You would just hope so. Otherwise, this whole thing is for naught, especially as I'm watching Indiana possibly winning game 7 and watching Halliburton jump passing to corner after corner, cutting to the basket and making layups. I think that's in there somewhere. We just got to hit it.
Big bonus of making this deal with Jalen and Dillon. You're trying to get rid of guys that dribble, and don't pass. Well, two of those guys are out the door. So,
geez.
I mean, that should be a big help for the Rockets. I mean, I still need to see some of these other guys figure this out too. Tari, not somebody that, is great at passing. And when he does pass, you're always a little bit worried about it. Jabari, again, not a good passer, but it doesn't have to be perfect passes. But if you watch Indiana, what they're doing is crisscrossing out front and moving and they understand that, like, you don't sit there and dribble 10 times. You dribble a couple of times. If you see something quickly, they make decisions of, like, we go or we pass to somebody else. That's the decisions that Indiana does. And that's the decisions the Rockets need to start doing offensively. And that's a mindset. And that's got to start with the coaching staff.
Absolutely. No, you said it perfectly. Absolutely.
A couple weeks ago, I said the first personnel offseason priority was re-signing Steven Adams. Not only did he re-sign, but the contract, it's fantastic. It's a 3-year declining deal, Clayton. $14 million this year, $13 next. Wow. Roughly 12 in year 3. I thought it would at least cost near a mid-level value, but this is better than mid-level. And just, again, you talk about the Rockets brass and what they did in the Kevin Durant trade. This is more good work by the Rockets front office.
No, absolutely. I looked up Spot Track. There might be some other sources that might be a little bit different, but I looked up the numbers. Steven Adams' contract is actually ranked 34th on Spot Track in terms of total money, behind guys like Miles Turner, Victor Wembanyama, and others, to name a few. No, it's a beautiful contract, and I wrote it up on my notes that I think that deal, as great as it is, I think you're committed more so to an identity, more so than the player. And you could tell by Game 7 how quickly Udoka turned to the double big lineup with Steven Adams being there. Yeah, so no, I think it was a phenomenal contract. I think it was a great commitment to the kind of team you want to be. I think it's a great fit, and you just hope that it leads somewhere.
Here's another part to this Kevin Durant trade. We now know that VanVleet's going to re-sign here. How much would you be willing to pay VanVleet? I ask this because it looks like some of the Rockets followers overestimating his value. Only the Pistons and Nets have real cap space beyond a mid-level. The Pistons have Cade Cunningham, so they don't need him. The Nets have shown no interest at this point. Most teams in the NBA go through the rosters one by one. They've got a starting point guard that you would say is either better or somebody that they're developing and who's younger than VanVleet. He's not going to get any chances to play for these other teams. They don't have the money, I don't think. Can't they just sign him for roughly $20 million per year, Clayton? Maybe it's a 3-year deal, something like that.
Sure, that's what I'm thinking. And you could tell they were talking about maybe something by when they extended the deadline out to June. Forget the exact date in June, but we know what the deadline was, right? And then they kicked it out here, so they're probably talking through. I think that with Jalen's departure, it makes him that much more important, at least for Udoka. And absolutely, I think even without the KD trade, that the conversation should have been towards, hey, let's knock this number down to, let's say, at the highest 30, at the lowest, to your point, maybe 22, 25, and let's reallocate some of this money, to pay our young guys and to maybe bring some other guys in. I think that's the direction you go in, especially if you're VanVleet. Like, he said that he wanted to stay here, that it wasn't trying to be a short-term deal. Okay, cool. Let's do that, right? Let's put all things on the table. If you want to win a championship, then let's all go in on this. And doesn't mean he has to be, again, like 10, 15 mil, like paid like he's a 7/8 man. But just logistically and realistically, it's not going to work if Fred VanVleet, who is all of my height, no disrespect, he is accumulating a lot of the percentages of your salary cap that could go towards actually building and sustaining a championship roster. But what are your thoughts on that number?
I think it should be a declining deal, again, if like a 3-year decliner. So you're in that maybe not Steven Adams range by year 3 where it's 11, but maybe you can get him for 17 or 18 in that third year, something like that.
Yeah.
And also when you look at the market, I just feel like the way the NBA is moving right now, we're going towards if you're either a have or a have not. So there's not the guys that are in that mid range where, let's say that we'll call it right now, the $20 to $40 million range.
Mm-hmm.
And, VanVleet, that you're going to look at some contracts this offseason with some of the role players around. And I think we're going to be very surprised at how small of amount that some of these guys are going to get. That's my feeling.
Look, this league goes through booms all the time. New TV deals, new money comes flush into the league, and some guys get paid money that they probably should never get paid. I don't think this is that kind of offseason. I think a lot of guys, their salaries are going to reflect where teams want to go. And I think looking at an Indiana, I think at an OKC, I think that's some blowback from that. I think a lot of teams are starting to understand, like, you don't have to blow your whole salary cap on one or two guys. You have to sustain a team full of playmakers, passers, defenders. You need layers and layers of players, to quote Bill O'Brien, before Herbert gets that reference. But you need layers and layers of players in order to be effective in regular season, playoffs, injury prevention, all that stuff. So I don't think a lot of guys should be trying to cash in this offseason. I think this would be the offseason of either ring chasing or a lot of guys trying to find fits on teams, and vice versa for franchises. I think a lot of franchises are trying to get smarter with their finances, specifically this offseason. So
I'm going to end it with at least one I told you so. Dillon Brooks, when they made the deal, I loved it because I thought, yeah, he's going to bring in some of that toughness. He's going to teach these guys some toughness. He did all of that. He did all of the stuff behind the scenes. He definitely was helping Şengün. Şengün spoke about that a couple of different times, particularly during this season. And everybody's concerned about the numbers, and they were concerned about, why are you giving this guy a 4-year deal at that number and whatever? And it's a declining contract. You had to wait till the contract came out. It was a declining contract, and it was worth it because of what he was able to do. And lo and behold, it's a 4-year deal. Guess what? 2 years later, he's gone. You got Kevin Durant for him. And the funny thing is, 5 years, remember this also, Clayton, 5 years after the Rockets traded away James Harden so he could go play with his buddy Kevin Durant, we got Kevin Durant. James is in LA and Kyrie Irving's in Dallas, and he's not going to be playing much this year. So the worm turns a lot and very fast in the NBA.
Yeah, I saw somebody post that picture on X. We literally have had all 3 MVPs belonging to OKC. I feel like our franchise will forever be tethered to that franchise for one reason or another. It's just funny. And look, you mentioned it. Kudos to Stone, man. When Stone first was announced as the guy after Daryl Morey, I'm pretty sure the whole city was like iffy. But the fact that Stone is showing himself to be somebody who, as you mentioned, even kill, not overspending. He's not throwing in just random crazy deals. He's dead set on whatever his deal is. He's going to stay there or somewhere close to it. And the league just have to adapt. And that's just something to get used to. We're used to the more years where it was a trade every other day, every other year. And we were just throwing out random crazy things. But now, you have a team with a vision. You have a focus. You have a steadiness where their deal is their deal, and they're going to stick with it. And hate it or love it, it is what it is. And the fact that Stone has cooked up just now, he did what he could do with the Dillon Brooks contract and others. No, it's not over, and no, we shouldn't judge it like it's over. But it's just as a Rockets fan who's, I have not put in the volume of years as yourself and others, but just to kind of see where they are today in 2025. It's a sight to see with excitement for the future. So
the other thing I would say about this roster is, for the first time in a pretty good while, there's nobody that's in this rotation. It's going to be a mainstay in this rotation that I don't love. I'm a fan of so many of these guys. Cam Whitmore is the only guy that I'm kind of on the fence, and I'm not sure about at this point. And I don't even know if he's going to be in this rotation. But these are all guys that I feel like, the skill set and the stuff that they can bring. I've said there's some questions about Reed Sheppard and the defense, and, let's see if he can prove me wrong about that. I've got big concerns about him there, but, love Tari, love Jabari, love Amen. And, we know about Kevin Durant. No need to, go into that. Steven Adams is, just so underrated as far as around the league. And now we know him and we've rated him, and it's incredible. And Fred, for all of his faults, he's so tough. And when he's your back end of the option when you don't have to rely on him because Jalen Green's out there,
right?
and you got KD instead. You got to like what VanVleet does with so many different things that he brings to the table, defense and toughness, and occasionally hitting those big shots for you. I mean, it makes me excited about seeing this team because it's just you don't have guys that you're just going, that guy he just scares me. He scares me.
No, I love your point. No, you're right. I think it's a lot of guys that are motivated. And it's funny because before the KD news dropped, one of our talking points was going to be, what was the team morale going to be without a trade, right? Like, especially on the trade deadline. And the fact that you take that off the table and you keep your young core, I think you're going to see a lot of young, motivated guys. I think they're going to be hungry. I think it's just the perfect storm to just be a season where you come off a second seed in the West, you blow it early, you get Kevin Durant, and I just think it's going to be the perfect situation where we're going to learn a lot about this team. Jabari, Tari, we already know about KD, like to your point. But no, I just am excited for the season. And it doesn't guarantee a championship. I know there are people on the Rocket side of things, championship, and others. I popped into a YouTube live with some Phoenix analysts, and they were talking, like, Rockets fans are sorry to disappoint you, but it doesn't guarantee a championship. Look at KD's past. Listen, nobody with common sense is going to act like, KD being here guarantees anything. We understand you got to play the games. But still, as a Rockets fan, just let us have this, like, it's been some dark times. And the fact that not just for relevance sake, but we have a legit shot. We can see a legit path to a possible championship in today's era. That's just an exciting thing. So I'm excited for these young guys. I'm excited for Jabari Smith, who survived the trade deadline. Not deadline, but I'm happy for him that he survived the trade talks. And this just has a way of reinvigorating a lot of these guys who just needed the confidence of the franchise to tell them, like, hey, listen, like, no, we trust you. Like, you're here. We're committed. Let's go after it. So I'm excited for that.
On Jabari, this is huge because the organization basically said he was an untouchable and Jalen was out the door. And, it should give this kid confidence in the offseason. And hopefully he talked about working on his dribble. I know he's probably tried to do that the last couple of off seasons, but that's going to be key. You watch the playoffs. And if Jabari could just give you something where he could just dribble a little bit, because the Pacers, everybody can dribble, it seems like. Same with the Thunder, except, I don't know, maybe you can argue Hartenstein's not that guy. It's going to take anybody off the dribble. But for the most part, those guys can all dribble, and they've got skills beyond just standing still and shooting threes or shooting a, turnaround 12-foot or 14-foot jump shot. So really, Jabari should feel better about this after all of that, and hopefully he'll take that into next season and some of that momentum. Yeah, speaking on Durant, what you said, I think it's key to note that, like, Durant, it's been several years. We got to go back several years since he's even made a playoff run of any consequence. When he, got to the finals and got hurt, I want to say that was the last time that you saw him go through all those rounds. And what you're seeing in this playoffs is it is a battle of attrition. And can a guy that's 37 years old be able to handle that 4 rounds in the playoffs? And really, I don't look at this as like, oh, the Rockets now have Kevin Durant for 82 games. I think they're going to really play it slow with him. And there are going to be times where either they're going to lessen his minutes or they're going to give him some games off next year. And I think that's going to be a way to hopefully get him through a playoffs unscathed or a little bit better. But it's still tough. Even with all that, it is still tough to get through the playoffs because it's really like a whole other season that you're going through if you're trying to get through the 4 rounds. So, yeah, just a lot to look forward to. Also, I'm going to repeat that Cooper Klein's coming on with me in a couple of days, and we'll get more into this, and I'll probably have more ideas about what else we have to get into going into the next few weeks with the KD trade. He's at Crosstalk Houston on X. Go check out Clayton. Go follow him on X. And just want to tell you, really appreciate you doing this. It's always fun catching up with you and talking Rockets, man.
No, absolutely, man. Looking forward to the next time.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.